that we're being live streamed. So we can go ahead, and as soon as you agree to that, then Pjae is going to start us.
Hey,
Right. Everybody's agreed. We're going to get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We have a wonderful, wonderful guest, as we always do, but we just have a great guest today. She and I were just chatting before you guys came, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are missing out on this pre conversation. This is great." But anyway, so we're very happy to have you here. Thank you so much. And we're going to start with just a small treatment. If anyone feels so moved to do an opening treatment, you're welcome to. Okay, thank you, Ruth. You have to unmute.
there
There
we
you go.
go. All right. We are so blessed, so very blessed to be able to come together in this space and this time from all the different centers of the universe that we are, bringing together all of these universes into one being, one knowing, one feeling, one unfolding, becoming discovery of possibility. What a treat. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to get to know each and every one of these people and learn together. And I know each of us will take away from this place, this time, this gathering, a whole new dimension of being that we can take into the world to bring the world more fully into the one heavenly existence that is the reality of all that is. And in this gratitude and appreciation and knowing this blessedness, I say, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. How beautiful. Thank you, Ruth. So welcome everyone. I just want to remind you that we do encourage questions and comments. So we'll let our speaker get started and give us our premise, and then any words or comments or questions that you might have, please just raise your digital hand and we will call on you. Okay, as soon as we get a little break in the conversation, we'll call upon you and have some conversation. So again, thank you so much. So let me go ahead and introduce our wonderful speaker for today, Reverend Dr. Melissa Higginbotham. And the title for today is Holding the Center of Peace, which I just really love. We came up with that after we discussed what she wanted to talk about, and it was just so wonderful. So this is how we hold the center of peace, transformation and wisdom over time. Over time. So Reverend Dr. Higginbotham is the Director of Education at Emerson Theological Institute, and she's here to discuss her new thought body of work and her work with Emerson. She has earned a BA in music from California State University in Fresno, an MS in logistics from the USAF, that's the United States Air Force Institute of Technology. She received her doctorate in spiritual studies and a doctorate in religious studies from Emerson Institute and a doctorate of divinity from the American Institute of Holistic Theology. She is an ordained religious science and interfaith minister and a member of the affiliated New Thought Network, ANT, in which all of you should be. As a director of education, she teaches and develops curricula for Emerson Institute. She's also authored a book on sound healing and consciousness called Voicing the Sound Eternal, Transformational Power of Sound and Consciousness. She is the labyrinth facilitator. So if any of you have ever been to the Anton conference, you have walked the labyrinth with Dr. Melissa, and you know how wonderful and beautiful and special that is. She's a certified color puncture practitioner. I know there's got to be questions about that because I definitely have questions about that one, and a Reiki Master. So Reverend Melissa was recently also featured in the Divine CEO magazine. Laura Topper is going to be our guest next month. So if you want to know more about the Divine CEO magazine, please join us again next month and hear what Laura has to say. But right now we're going to go ahead and give Reverend Melissa as much time as we possibly can to discuss her topic on holding the center of peace, transformation, and wisdom. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today, for joining this gathering. And you could just kind of just open and share your thoughts as we go. We've got some questions here, but what are your thoughts about transformation and wisdom acquisition over time? Because you talked about all the things that you've done, the work you've done, the stuff in the military, the schooling that you've had, and how all of that has come together to help you in your transformation and discovering that it's a transformation and discovery of self over time. So Yeah.
You know, I know. What do you do when you, it is over time, right? I mean, it's a step by step, minute by minute, hour out by hour. And you don't know you're in the journey till you're in the journey. And each moment you're just trying to be the best person you can. You're trying to be kind. You're trying to hold peace. You know, my parents in the 70s had started going into science, and I was looking at all sorts of stuff like Blavatsky and Annie Besant and initiation stuff and Masters of the Far East and, you know, all this esoteric literature.
Yes.
And then I started reading Science of Mind and Emmett Fox and just trying to explore, you know, I think everybody kind of feels restless, you know, who am I, what am I doing here type
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
And at the same time, what am I going to do in my life? And one day I just decided after I had gotten divorced, I just didn't want to be in Fresno, California anymore. I wanted to do something different. So I went and joined the military of all things. And my family.
That's different.
I started going, what the hell is she doing? You know, why is she doing this? But I think sometimes when we decide to do something different, we do something different. And I didn't know that it was what I was supposed to do. I just felt that I needed to make a break and needed just to do something different for a few years in order to I told myself, maybe if I made a difference, went through a different doorway, I would find something I wanted to do, or something would happen that would show me a different way of being, or maybe I could, because I felt like I was doing music, and I just didn't feel like, even though I felt music was the pathway, I didn't feel that was what I any longer wanted to do the rest of my life. And so I joined the military and ended up in South Carolina. And I thought, oh my God, how conservative back in the 80s, 1981, and how it was. And here I thought I was liberal, and I found out how conservative I really was. It was really conservative there. But it showed me, I think it caused me to where I had been brought up. I had been in abusive relationship. And I think it started my journey into self-empowerment. I had to essentially decide within myself, what was I going to allow? And it took me a lot of time, many years to be able to set boundaries. But it was a step-by-step process. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens each moment you make a decision on what are you going to let happen? What are you going to decide in your life? What are you going to what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What choices are you going to make? And a lot of things happen. I ended up going into officer training and ended up in Texas, and then ended up overseas. And it was overseas that and we were trained kind of through our home life to be very competitive and to read a lot, and education was very strong. And so we had this overachieving complex, and we did a lot of reading and a lot of education. That was kind of our focus, was to learn. And so I was there overseas, and so I was known as the top mobility officer in Europe, and I was a very young lieutenant. So they thought that I had been in the service 8 years by the level of knowledge I had, but I'd only been in the service 3 years. And so you get to a certain, when you know a lot more than everybody around you, and you're young. Yeah, I didn't really realize how, I think I had a certain level of arrogance, and and that's a thing on the spiritual path. You get to face that within yourself, because you learn humility, but my colonel came up to me and said, "Missy, you need to be nice to this captain." I said, "Sir, She doesn't know her ass from the hole in the ground. He says, yes, that may be so, Missy, but you need to be nice to her. So I had taken the textbook, the Science Mind textbook with me. I had robbed it out of my mother's, well, my mother gave it to me, but I had taken other books out of her bookshelf. Every time I went home, I brought back books. And I had Catherine Ponder. Now, Catherine Ponder's Prospering Power of Love is all about love. But there was this one part that I remembered having to do with blessing. And so I started blessing this lady. And everything I've done, I have to prove it to myself. And that's what we tell people in New Thought, prove the principle.
Yes,
And my dad
I love
always,
that part.
my dad always said that if there's an issue, go back to first cause, go back to principle. And so that started me on the road to proving principle. And it's not that she changed, but I started changing. And then,
Exactly.
and then when I went to Ohio, which was my next assignment, I can remember cars coming in off the road, and you get those cliches coming in your mind. My mom always said, "Oh, the SOBs are out tonight," and all of a sudden, this old programming came in my mind, and I said, "Oh my God." That was the first thought that came in, was this imprinting of this old cliche. And so I started blessing again. And then I had a spiritual moment in a dream where I was handed this key. And I said, I did the 2-year-old thing. I'm not ready. And I was asked, well, when are you going to be ready? And I said, okay. And then I came down, and then it was like I just couldn't get enough. I was doing pyramids, I was doing dowsing, I was doing color. I learned about color healing, I learned about sound. I learned about crystal bowls. I was on the leading edge of getting the crystal bowls when they were still using them for what you call it, they would use them in experiments. They still weren't selling them very much. They were just starting to sell them for the sound therapy field, but they were using them for the computer chip stuff. And so, and then I was building medicine wheels, and I was taking classes from like the people from the Berkeley Psychic Institute came in, so I was taking classes from there, and I was taking classes going to the mineralogical shows, and so I amassed like a 1,600 book library. I was just
wow.
Yeah, and I thought of myself as a way shower. If I didn't know the information, I could say, well, go see this person, or go look at that, and so I wanted to see what was there, and sometimes things would show up in my life, and then it would stop, and I'd say, oh, well, I was so energized around that. Why is the energy gone? And sometimes it's just you need to learn something, and it's for later. And then and then I was at headquarters, Air Force Logistics Command, and there was this lady there that said she wanted to get out. She no longer wanted to be in the industrial, defense industrial area, and she was going to get out and fight for peace. And I told her, you understand that fighting, the energy of fight, is still, no matter what, is still war. And so I was I started thinking about, well, why am I in the service? So all this time, I was there thinking, why am I in the military? And I would read the Tao, and I would read the 5 Rings. I would read different things about all over different, whether it was Eastern philosophy or the Western philosophy of what was warriorship, and
What was what? I'm sorry, warrior?
Warriorship.
Warriorship, okay.
Yeah, and what were the qualities of warriorship? And qualities are, you have perseverance, you have focus, you have commitment, you have a loyalty to a cause, there's brotherhood, there's community. So you have, and there's a sense of comradeship, there's integrity of purpose, there's excellence in all you do, and there's service. So you have all these code words, and so there are certain qualities of character that you learn. And what you find is that in order to change something, you have to be within it. You can't be on the outside and change something. You have to be in it. And how do you, and knowing that God is everything, our God is nothing at all, that in order to change something, if you be the peace itself, and you go within a structure, and it can be any organization, then you be the peace. You be the energy that permeates an organization. So I started contemplating the thought that wherever I am, if I can be that energy of peace, then perhaps where I am, they will use the instrument of diplomacy, because you have different instruments. Instrument of war is always the last resort in the strategic planning of the United States, you see.
Okay.
And so the first instrument is always diplomacy. And so you're there and understand that all our energy fields isn't quantum physics wonderful? Entanglement. We're entangled. There's a singularity point. And the singularity point, one of the conscious thoughts that aha moments I had is that the singularity point is within each of us. It's the universe, the cosmos organizes itself around a point, around the singularity point. So the singularity point isn't out there somewhere, though we could think, because as above, so below, as without, so within, but it's here within each of us. And this organizing point, and at this organizing point is the divine flame. That's the animating flame. So when we go here, when we say, let us now center down within the light, God is here. Let us center down within the light. Peace is here. So you go within your singularity point, and then you expand it into the circle, into the sphere of creation. And that's what all the sacred geometry and all that, those occult and esoteric symbols about the circle and about the point and the circle and how the point expands into the circle. Well, it's within you, and you are the cosmos. You are the universe. You are the quantum field. And by your expanding your consciousness as the Christ, as the absolute in singular form, as the absolute, as the singular point, then you become the gift of presence and being, and wherever you are, this holy ground, wherever you are, speaks and informs the field of everybody. So when I was the liaison for a 4-star general at the Pentagon, I knew very well that when he and his aide came into my office, came into his office, but it was my office. When they came into the office, I knew that my field was informing his field. And then when he left for Afghanistan, when he left for Iraq, I knew that they were taking whatever consciousness I was anchoring in that office. Mm-hmm. And then whoever he spoke to, do you see? And then it becomes the ripple effect. So each of us informs the field, and it becomes the ripple effect. And so we can do that wherever we are. The ministry of presence and being is where we're going. And it's where we are, because in the now point, everything happens. So when we can, as we reveal more of the Christ as us, then we affect everybody, and when they go to the grocery store, when they go out and walk the dog, everybody that they come into contact with, they leave, they inform the field, and it starts doing this.
Well, you know what, Millicent? I am going to pause you just for a second because you have said so many great things, and I'm pretty sure there are going to be some questions or some comments from people right now. So I'm just wanting to open it up and just see if is there anyone that has any thought, comment, clarity? Yes, Laura has a question or a thought or
Well,
comment. Go ahead,
and
Laura.
hi. It's so
Hi.
good to see everybody. So, full disclosure, Missy and I worked closely together for a long, long time.
Sure.
But I just have an epiphany. I love these moments where you know someone for so long and you have an epiphany. I never really fully got your military piece with, I mean, I have, but how we're all, the military structure is what we all have going on up here and in here. And so if you can do that in that type of structure, isn't that what we're all doing inside of ourselves? And probably the biggest, I mean, I feel like I want to cry.
Yes.
I think
It's so profound.
the biggest question, or maybe the aha, is, you know, one of the biggest things you've taught me is how to live in non-judgment, you know, and how to begin to do that in my own self. And then whatever is happening out here to be that point of peace, that point of consciousness. And I think I'll forever be changed for that.
Thank you, Laura.
I mean, I don't know anything more, because I'm not a military person, if I'm be honest. That's not my, you know, I never thought you and I would get along because I'm just a little old elementary school teacher at heart. But to understand the concepts of military and what the true identity of that is, and then how we are the point of consciousness, which I understand we are, the peace begins with us. We are, and how that influences the field is extraordinary to me.
Yes.
Anyway, that wasn't a question. I couldn't.
No. We
I
have
couldn't take
questions,
it any longer.
comments. Exactly. That's why I wanted to break it, because I knew she had just said so many great things and that people are being affected by what she's saying. And so I wanted people to have an opportunity to speak about what they're feeling or hearing or whatever. So are there any other comments? Because I'm going to let her loose to continue. Okay. All right. I see them with their hands. So Missy, we're going to go ahead. Because you talked about, you're talking about this, that we are the place of consciousness, and that, you know, we take it and spread it out wherever we go. And I love that. One of the things that you, no, I'm sorry, I'm reading a comment here. Someone said, please let her loose. Let her loose. This is.
I won't talk the rest of the time, but with our little school where we live close together, Wendy and I want to make a shirt that says "You've been missied," and so let her loose.
Yeah, definitely going on. So when you talked about that we're bringing everything with us, and you talked about this self-ascension flame of consciousness. So that's kind of what you're talking about, kind of leads to that self-ascension flame of consciousness. Speak to that, would you please?
Okay, I know I had talked with you one time on the phone about the ascension flame, and when I was in the military, I was
Yeah, that's it.
I know. Well, one of the during my journey early on, I came into contact with the concept of the ascension flame. And knowing that the animating flame within us is right here at the heart space, the heart chakra, and that we all have this animating flame within us. And I called it the ascension flame, and I would sit there by the altar, and I called it, and I knew that the spark of the divine, that there is no place, and that was before my concept. I mean, I knew intellectually that God is every place, but at that time, I was building the inner temple, and I would sit by the altar, and there was this flame, and I would throw all my misqualified energies, the anger, the resentment, I would send it into this flame and see the flame, and the ascension flame was called. I also called it the Christ flame, and I started it out as the seventh dimensional violet flame, and then it became this golden white flame. As I grew in consciousness, so my flame did, or my concept of the flame. And eventually I became the flame, because it grows. What your inner pictures are, as you grow in understanding and consciousness and embodiment, then that concept grows too. And now I teach becoming the flame, becoming the pillar. And you send that spark down to below the center of the earth and up to your idea of infinity, and you breathe and you become the pillar. And you are the pillar. And wherever you walk, you're this pillar, and you're grounded, and you just breathe as the pillar. John Randolph Price, in his book on the Alchemist Handbook, I think, or the Alchemy Handbook, he says, I am an auric field of divine fire. And so it's the fire, it's the flame of God consciousness. And so what I would do is I would get on a 141, and I was inspecting the materials handling equipment, like forklifts and things like that, what we would use to load the airplanes, the 130s, the 141s, the C5s, now the C17s. And I would go to, let's say, like Ascension Island, which is down in the South Atlantic, and which you can't get on unless you're military or you're invited by the governor there, because it's owned by the U.K. And it was great to be on Ascension Island when you're working with Ascension, and Antigua, and I went to Japan and Korea and Germany, and I just went all over. And what I would do is I would get there and I would go into meditation, and I would anchor the flame. I would visualize a flame being anchored. I'd call on my divine team. We all have a divine team. You have guides, you have angels, who knows all, but you do have a divine team, and we don't always know consciously who's on the team, but definitely you have a divine team. So I would call my divine team to help, and I would go into meditation, and I would anchor that divine flame, and then I would visualize that flame expanding, because you see, consciousness, I mean, we're talking about vibration, we're talking about light and sound. Sometimes I would tone, sometimes I would chant or sing, whatever, when you go into meditation and allow the God force to be with you, for you, and as you just don't know what it is, but you know it's perfect, because you are the absolute in singular form, acting for and as the divine, and so you are anchoring that flame there, and you're doing it through all time, space, dimensions, parallel worlds, and universes, and alternate realities. You're doing it all, and so that became my joy. That became my spiritual practice when I'm in the military, as I go from place to place on a 141, on a C5, on a C17. That was on a 130, strapped into the seats in my camis and jump boots, and so it's and see what happens is when you set that type of consciousness in places, and you can be anywhere, then it's a frequency that that does two things. When people go through it, all of a sudden their frequency does this, and then they start saying, I wonder what, or may say, I have an idea. Instead of doing that, maybe I'll go buy that bookstore instead, and it becomes an awakening area, or it can actually be where it becomes an enlivening area for the earth. You just don't know. You have trust that it's doing its perfect work here and now, because isn't that what the knowingness? It's like doing a spiritual mind treatment for that place. And you can imagine that it's because creative imagination is the knowingness. You're claiming truth, you know? You're claiming truth in visualization and sound and light and knowingness. And you're seeing and knowing the expansion of it. And today I just did a knowingness treatment that everything I've ever done in all time and space, that all that is still there at a higher, and it's still expanding, because time, past, present, future, there is no, it's all now. And when you know that it's all now, then it's not in the past, it's happening now. And so I can do it. What I did then is now. So yeah, hallelujah. And and so I did that wherever I went. And one of the when I got to Washington D.C. area, when I lived in Northern Virginia and got assigned to the Pentagon, I got a map. I got a map of all the forts, the Abraham Lincoln forts that surrounded Washington D.C. and did that in forts. In sometimes they were just signs. There wasn't no longer a fort. There was a housing area, but there was here's where Fort whatever was during okay. But it formed the protective defenses of Washington D.C. during the Civil War. And I went to area. I mapped it out on a map. Got one of those old maps, and did flame work around. And then two friends of mine came in, and we did one of those in the courtyard of the Pentagon. Now, and we did that the Thursday before 9/11. And it's interesting because you never know what effect what you do is going to have. And what I found out later was that where we did an energy anchoring was where they took the victims, where they of 911, where they evacuated them to for triage. And so what does that do then? It means that it allowed them perhaps the potential of safe passage back home. So you never know what effect you're going to have. And you don't need to know. You just need to be the best you in each moment. And if for some reason you fall off the horse, you get back up, you say, oh, well. And you say, and I do a lot every day of just saying, okay, everything in my biofield, everything in my energy field that's not mine or that's ready to be released, I now send back to God's source and lay it on the altar, because you see, it's all sacred in this. And altars are where we put things that we make sacred. And everything we've ever done, whether we judge them as good or bad, it's all sacred because it's made us who we are this moment. It's made us compassionate. It's made us a lot more loving. It's made us more of who we are, being able to reveal more of our authentic self, the light within us. And that's what we do each moment. That's who we be, you know?
Exactly. So is this going to, like you said, when you went to the area, when you went to the forts, when you went to the areas around 911, when you went to Ascension Islands, is this what you mean when you would talk to me about singing down the flames? Talk to me a little bit about what that means.
Well, when I used to do a lot in other times of what I call singing down the flames, and I did some work there at what I call heavy duty spiritual work. Sometimes I did some at Laura's and Frank's and Wendy, their stewards and stuff of a retreat place, and I did it of my land here, and I have done it at different places where like the Wheel of Transcendence that we have for Emerson. I think of it as 12 pillars of consciousness. You know, we're talking about love, grace, and truth, and trust, and freedom, and reverence, and authenticity, and integrity, and impeccability, those types. And what I do is I do my own connection with God's source and the earth and I become the pillar. And then I start toning. I might chant, I might sing, but I get into that frequency and sound of light, and I allow that sound to come through as me. And I say, okay, I now anchor, and I just sing and see the flames, the singing down the flames. What you are doing, the flames are consciousness. They're the flames of consciousness, and you're singing, you're allowing those flames of consciousness to flow through you, to flow through the meridians, the nadis, every aspect of your energy field, and you're singing in joy and love and allowing this and being this, and you're anchoring it as a pillar. And then you're doing it one by one by one. So you're singing it down very purposefully, and you're asking your divine team to help you to do this. And it's for a very purposeful reason. And I was doing it, and I was doing it as a boundary. Okay, pow, pow, love pillar, grace pillar, trust pillar, freedom pillar, truth pillar, and that was the what builds the structure. So to me, that was the structure that I was building when I came on with Emerson. That was the wheel of transcendence, and then open at the top, and primum deus, cognoscite deum. Whatever, primum deus, know God first, primum deus. I forget when my mind is out here. It's
That's all right.
it's primum deus. Damn.
Well, we could go on the site.
Cognoscite deum. Yeah, primum cognoscite deum, and know God first. And so it's by knowing who you are in truth, knowing you are God in action, and then you sing, and it becomes a spiritual mind treatment. You see, it doesn't become steps; it becomes who and what you are. And so when I read Goldsmith, Practicing the Presence, decades ago, and they asked him for treatment, he said, done. And I wanted to know, well, my God, how did he do that? I want that. I want to be able to get to the point where someone can ask me for spiritual mind treatment. I can say, done. I can take a deep breath, done. Because I know.
Right.
Not I know, but I know. And it's all through the heart space. It's all the singular point of singularity, the organizing principle that everything is organized around. Hope that answers your question.
It answered the question for me. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Because I had these questions here, but you've actually kind of answered to things like what was the question I had here, because you talked about it a lot when you talked about singing down the flames, was a Christ consciousness. So could you speak to that, about how you see that, how you view that?
Well, Christ consciousness is the consciousness of the divine, because it's the consciousness that we are here. I mean, when it's the absolute and singular form. When we are incarnated here in form, that's the consciousness. I mean, what was Christ consciousness called? It's the anointed. We are anointed as the divine. Everybody is anointed, and and how much do we reveal the truth of who we are? So and we have this consciousness. We all have this consciousness ready to be revealed, but it's how much of it do we allow it? Are we in agreement to it and in accord with the truth of who we are? And that is the Christ consciousness. It's God in action, God as speaking as us, through us, with us, for us, and as us. We are it. There is no other.
Exactly. What we have a few more minutes left, and so I just want to open it up to anyone who has some comments or some thoughts, maybe want to share their experiences with Dr. Missy. And also, I do want to talk to you a little bit. I want you to talk a little about the connection between Emerson and Anton. But I'm just going to open it up for some questions or comments right now, and then we'll move forward to that part as well. So, questions, comments? Just you can raise your hand physically or throw up your digital hand. Okay, there. Michael Spear has a question, and then Jenny Savins. I'll get to you, Michael.
Hello, Missy.
Hi, Michael.
You know, I'm constantly working with the concept of duality, eliminating anything around duality, and I'm continuing to go through layers. I realize how sometimes even I start falling into that one of in languaging of a God outside of myself, a power outside of myself, call it the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. How do you bring that into this practice? Because I know, as for instance, when you're referring to the flames of energy and springing it within you and all, there's still, I see so many different ways that there is little nuances in languaging and everything else around a power outside of ourselves, when really we're expression. We are that quantum field. We are spirit and expression. How do you bring that into your practice to work with eliminating of any ideas around duality?
You know, Michael, we are in a world of polarity. You know, that's the old Kabbalistic teachings. And you read the ancient teachings. When you come down here, we get to learn about different faces of God emanating. And so we get to learn about, I mean, the positive pole and the negative pole of the magnetic poles. We get to learn about the whole, but what's interesting is that we get to learn about the whole spectrum now. We get to learn, instead of just duality, we get to learn about the whole spectrum, all the flavors of God. And so I think it's recognizing that there are all these flavors of God, and that we are going back into a world that everything is okay and it's all back of the one. You see, that it's all part of the one. And I think it's when we go into the energy of judgment that it's this or this or this or that, because I think we come, my opinion, and it's my opinion only, is that we choose polarity or duality as a way of learning about the different flavors of God, about different ways of looking out. You know, it's like I can close my left eye, now I see the world through my right eye, and I can close my right eye and see through the left, or I can look at both eyes, you know, and see it. And so I think it has to do with, it's not right or wrong, it's how we look at it, and it's like I told one of my lieutenants that when I was in the military, and I said I wanted to put him in place because I was having an issue with race relations, and he was such a lovely lieutenant. I mean, and I said Harold, and his name was Lieutenant Goss. I said, Harold, I said it would be awfully boring to have a field, to have a garden full of just red roses. I said, I like to have a diversified garden because it makes everything more beautiful. I said, but we do have people in this squadron that just want the garden full of red roses. So I'm putting you in charge. And he was Afro-American, and he was the best darn lieutenant I've ever had. And I love that man, you know, and I had more men than women, and I had women issues with the men preying up on the women, and I had to show the women how to stand, how to own a room, you know, and so it's and I knew that I couldn't judge anybody. I knew I had to look at the flame. When I had a couple of guys that I had to give bad conduct discharges to, and they kept saying, "Why are you doing this to me?" And I said, "You know, you had choices. You had choices, and you knew the results of the possible results of those choices. I'm here just to give you the result of those choices you made, and I knew that if I thought of them as scumbags, that energy would go through my field, and that would return to me back in that same thing, that I had to keep my eye focused on the flame, and the flame is where unity is. And so I see duality happening, but I also am focused on the unity flame within each person. And so I celebrate how everybody is manifesting their different view of reality. And I celebrate how everybody everybody is experiencing their chosen way of living and their life. But that doesn't mean I can't see them as the unified flame within and know that we are all going back to a divine source where we are neither female nor male. So
Thank you.
That's kind of my view. I hope that helped. I don't know, but it's how it's having to understand that we are whole within. Every judgment or every way we look at Earth or we look at people out there, it all starts in here first. So
Thank you, Missy.
Thank you, Missy. Thank you so much. I think Jenny Sovereigns, you still have a question?
It was more of a statement than a question. I've taken Missy's course on voicing the sound eternal, and one of the things that I loved when you were talking about that is the toning and the chanting and the pillars on that, because the energy frequency, the whole vibration thing, I think sometimes gets lost with me, right? That I forget about being part of everything that's happening, and that sound is such an amazing part of the world and listening. And when I was taking your class, that was what it was all about, like paying attention not just to the sound around us, but the unheard sounds and how they affect us. So I was just grateful that you brought that into your talk today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for that comment.
And let me just make a thing too, the unheard sounds, because sometimes we are so busy with sound, also in music, that we forget about the pauses between the sound. And that's why in orchestra music, you have measures where there's nothing happening, but they call the rest. And Martha's picture, where she has pause, pray, and proceed. So it's very important to honor the pauses, to honor the rest, that we have to have those silence, the periods of silence or the periods of rest, and how much there is going on in those rest periods, in those fallow times when we think that there's nothing going on. But we need that in order to bring into magnification the times when we are doing something.
Nice. Thank you. Michelle, you had your hand up. You put it back down. Are you feel it's okay? Okay. All right. Andrea Brown, you have a question? Or
Yes, Andrea, I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier about this idea of fight and fighting against something. And I fully understand that fighting against something is the opposite of peace. And it's not where we're able to make it a profound difference. And I also, I have worked in cancer research most of my career. And the team, that slogan where I work now is one team, one fight. And it's this chant where there could be an entire room of people where one group on one side says one team and the other side says one fight. And it's this powerful magnetic kind of experience just to hear that, and because everybody is working together on this thing. But I also know that that's not helpful. Like it's not moving towards a solution. So I would just love for your insight on
Well, it's interesting when I was told that I was beginning to have uterine cancer, and I decided in that moment to have a hysterectomy, but I knew that it was my opportunity to be in the void space in the time of creation. That because I was not going to look at anything, I was not going to look at any scans that showed me what could be or what was. I was just going to say, I am here in the now moment of possibility and potential. And so what I did is then I did my prayer work, my treatment work, but I also then saw that I could bring in light, because when they have seen T cells on scans, they have seen them as bursts of light. And so I thought, wow, I could bring in burst of light into that space. And so what you could do is one team, one song, because then the song could be for healing, you see, could be for wholeness. And then the vibration, because when you think of sound, because the universe is all harmonics, the universe is a song, and they call it the song of the one note, meaning unity of the song. In the beginning was word, in the beginning was, and the word fiat lux, let there be light. So it becomes then the song that we're singing for healing, which is unity, which is one song, one note. It's God. You see what I'm saying? So you can, and you would know that, but then they're raising their voices in song, in sound, for wholeness, for healing. And it's not a fight. It's an allowing for the song to go out, and it allows consciousness, because light, sound is not only conscious, but it's a carrier of consciousness. So when people are saying, let's send healing out on the song, the consciousness is going out on that song for healing. And it may be stronger than for what they're doing there.
What a great reframe. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's not this, it's this there.
Right. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Missy. We don't have any further questions. Do you have any last comments? And do you want to bring in the connection between Anton and Emerson? You have a lot of Emerson graduates in Emerson School, people going to Emerson here. So you might want to, I'm sorry, Bill has his hand up. I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't see you there.
Yeah,
One more question.
thank you for the way that you answered Andrea's question, Missy, and it's wonderful. And it's just one more example of how language in everyday life is a little misguided, because it's a team fight. When you win the fight, what happens to the team? Everybody's out of work. So, focus on what you want to have happen, not the situation you're in now. So thank you both.
Yes, and Anton and Emerson are in partnership. There's a couple of Emerson's. Dr. Sandy and I do the registration table at the Anton conference. Emerson does the labyrinth, along with several of our graduates. We set up the labyrinth and take down the labyrinth on Tuesday nights. Contemplative journey into oneself as we walk the candlelight labyrinth. And then Thursday is graduation, and we are the educational arm for Anton. And it's a great event, just because Emerson's all about soul expansion. Martha Creek says that, and she was so sorry, she wrote me a note and said that she was on the road and couldn't be here today. But she says, if you can go to any other place and find the intellectual food, but come to Emerson for heart. We are here when we ask people, what's your spark? We want to meet you where you are, because it's not so much the school answer, but it's what does your soul want? What's the spark that you want? And so we want to find what your yes is. And that's what Anton is about. They want to find what your yes is. So we're in partnership with Anton to help you on your journey back to the one, your soul journey into expansion, into allowing yourself as the Christ energy, as the divine self, as the absolute and singular form, to be each moment the most absolute, authentic self you can be, and to inform the field. So love, grace, joy. We're here for you. So let us know what we can do for you.
Thank you, Missy. And thank you all so much for being here. We have a couple of messages. I don't know, Bill, I don't know if you have something you want to share, or Michelle. I definitely want to be talking about what's coming up next, but do you guys have something you want me to share, or you want to share?
It's
That
the
the
usual stuff that
audience-
we get to share. The Anton retreat is coming up in October. Early registration is open now, so you can save a few bucks and be there with us. It is going to be a spectacular program. It's called Boundless. And it's about what's next for New Thought. We got the leaders from a lot of the New Thought organizations. Very much looking forward to seeing you there for that. Speaking of Martha Creek, she's got a workshop a week from Saturday on the 3rd, which is about growing your congregation. And and I was talking to her this morning, if you have a congregation, if you have a board that would benefit from that, then register yourself and bring the whole board. Just give everybody the Zoom link, because it's the sort of thing that helps all the flowers in the garden grow together. So that was offered up as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, Michelle.
Just real quick, can I
I'll get to you, Kathy. Michelle.
just real quick. So the other thing is that Anton has a new book coming out very soon. Very soon. It's called Works of Heart, and it's just amazing. And I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Missy's article. So you want to buy this book if for no other reason than to read her article about her experience with 9/11, which she alluded to a bit here today. But it goes into much more than what she just said, and it's touching my heart right now, just thinking about having read that as I was proofreading the book. So just be on the lookout. We got a book coming soon, and you want to just turn to page, I don't know what page it is, but whatever page it is, get to Dr. Missy's page first and read that article. Thank you, Missy, for that for today.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Kathy, did you have something you want to share? I saw you waving your hand. You're on mute. You just put there.
Sorry, it flew by me. When is the Martha Creek workshop?
Was it?
It is on Saturday, August the 3rd, and all of the information about everything going on at Anton is on the website at antn.org.
Okay, thank you.
You can find
Thank
it,
you.
and we will see you.
And it's free to Anton members, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So if you're an Anton member, it's free to you. We have time for one more question. Celeste, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I did. And not that Dr. Missy is incorrect in saying that Emerson is the educational arm of Anton. I think of it more as being the foundational legs of Anton that causes Anton to rise up and be a continual support pillar. So that's just
Thank
my
you, Celeste.
comment.
That's a great comment. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angelo, for being out here today. I wanted to share with you to register for the TLT on Anton's website. Even if you know the link, if you think you know how to get on there, you will get the recording of the talk. So it'll be sent right to you once if you register. So please do that. You don't want to miss. I had to go back. Missy said so many great things, and she said I was trying to take copious notes, and I still don't have it all. So I'm going to definitely have to go back and re-listen. Just some great things. So I do encourage you to sign up for it. Our speaker next month is Laura Topper. Laura is on here right now, and she is the publisher for CEO Divine magazine, the originator. Do you want to say a couple of things, Rev Dr. Laura, before we go?
I'll say hello.
Yeah, you're
It's
coming
my
from
first
London.
time it's my first time on one of your calls, and it's really great to be here and to be with
So
you
glad.
and Dr. Missy and everybody. And I look forward to
you
being
so
back
much.
next month.
We look forward to having you. It's going to be great. Thank you. And she's a publisher for the magazine that Missy was featured in a couple months ago. So do sign up for that. Subscribe to her magazine if you can. All right. If we don't have anything else, if you haven't signed up, I think that we still have the Anton. We got food there. Thank you so much, Steve. The Anton retreat is still on the early bird until the 31st of July of this month. So if you haven't registered, you still have time to register at a discounted price. And I'm telling you, somebody was describing the conference as a family reunion, and that's how it feels. it just feels like a family reunion. You don't want to miss it. So please do come. The food is great. The information is great. The speakers are fantastic. The family is wonderful. You don't want to miss it. So again, you have plenty of time till, well, not plenty, but till the 31st to get a discounted rate. So we hope to see you again. See you next month when Reverend Dr. Laura is speaking. And thank you all so much for being, Mary Beth. All right, real quickly.
Put a plug in for the food. We were just at the Unity Village with the
INTA.
and according to Bill Marcioni, we were getting a test drive, and it was wonderful.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So there's a recommendation for the food alone. And so that's just one piece of it. And then food is included in the registration. So do come. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next month. Bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Missy.
Yes,